Pearl Harbor. It's the day that lives in infamy as an event that forever changed American history. On December 7th, 1941, Japanese planes bombed the American naval base on the Hawaiian island of Oahu.
Over 2,400 men were killed, while another 1,200 were wounded. More than 24 Navy vessels were completely destroyed, and 300 aircrafts were decimated.
But it was this unforeseen tragedy that dragged the United States into the bloodiest conflict the world has ever seen, World War II. After this attack, anti-Axis sentiment grew exponentially, and thus America became geared towards war.
On the morning of December 7th, 3 American Pacific Fleet aircraft carriers, the most prized ships of any naval fleet, were not present in the harbor.
These 3 ships, Enterprise, Lexington, and Saratoga, were not only dispatched just days before the attack, but were all en route back to Pearl Harbor by December 6th.
Exceptional luck or advanced knowledge. Being that very few knew about these ships, the American government did not publicize the fate of these vessels.
Similarly, warnings sent from both the U.S. Army and Navy suggesting potential Japanese aggression were disregarded by officials at Washington.
A simplified and much less urgent message was sent to all Pacific stations reminding them of dangers of Japan. None of the raw intelligence gathered by specialized decryption devices known as purple ciphers were sent.
Purple ciphers were in short supply and no cryptographic equipment was present on Hawaii before the attack. Without information directly from Washington, Pearl Harbor was completely in the dark, making the base very susceptible to exploitation as a victim.
But the big question is, why would the United States allow Pearl Harbor to be attacked? What did we have to gain from thousands of casualties and hundreds of damaged vessels? The answer is a product of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's extreme desire to join World War II, despite the strong nationalistic sentiment to remain neutral.
Although FDR had never officially stated that he wanted to go to war, it is obvious that he desperately wanted America to be a victim of Axis aggression. Such an event would justify the war in both Congress and the people's eyes.
Supporting this accusation is Vice Admiral Frank Beatty, a member of Roosevelt's inner circle who saw firsthand the president's zeal for war. In an official news report, Beatty states, "It was evident, even to me, that we were pushing Japan into a corner. I believe that it was the desire of Franklin Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill that we get into the war, as they felt the Allies could not win without us, and all our efforts to cause the Germans to declare war on us failed."
He continues, "The conditions we imposed upon Japan to get out of China, for example, were so severe that we knew the nation could not accept them. We were forcing her so severely that we could not have known that she would react toward the United States."
Another high-ranking official has insinuated Franklin Roosevelt's advanced knowledge of the attack. American Secretary of War Henry Stimson had accidentally stated that he and FDR contemplated ways in which to make America a victim of Japanese aggression while limiting self-inflicted damage. The President and his administration firmly rejected such a suggestion, and being at war, the masses were less focused on politics and more focused on winning.
Measures were in place in the United States to promote our neutrality in the war. Laws within the Neutrality Acts from 1935 to 1939 did things such as deny U.S. corporations the ability to sell weaponry to any nation involved in the conflict to limit involvement. But being a close ally of Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister who was losing the war against fascism, FDR felt obliged to intervene as the leader of the free world.
The Pearl Harbor conspiracy theory has been proposed by historians since the event itself. It suggests that the United States military knew about a planned attack on America and let it happen to rally the nation and convince Congress to go to war.
The most apparent evidence of such a theory is the curious McCollum memo, sent on October 7, 1940 by Lieutenant Commander Arthur H. McCollum more than a year before the devastating attack.
What is most intriguing about this memo is the fact that it essentially outlined FDR's antagonistic concerns regarding Japan. The McCollum memo was comprised of intelligence reports regarding intercepted, encrypted Japanese messages which were easily deciphered by the Americans.
One piece of the memo reads, "In the Pacific, Japan, by virtue of her alliance with Germany and Italy, is a definite threat to the security of the British Empire, and once the British Empire is gone, the power of Japan, Germany, and Italy is to be directed against the United States."
Another excerpt of this document, which remained classified until 1994, suggests that Roosevelt's administration would be happy if America was victimized, saying, "If by these means Japan could be led to commit an overt act of war, so much the better."
Another peculiar aspect of the attack was Pearl Harbor's total lack of preparation and defense. Military officials in Washington instilled a false sense of security and invulnerability.
These men claimed that the natural shallowness of the port would have made torpedo attacks ineffective and that the base was too far from Japan to be a realistic target. These messages came despite a mock attack on Pearl Harbor in February of 1933 that proved the base was extremely susceptible to both aerial and naval bombardment.
Many senior officials in the Navy disagreed with reports that suggested such invulnerability. One official, Admiral Richardson, lost his job after challenging FDR's decision to move the Pacific Fleet to Pearl Harbor. Richardson claimed there was no strategic reasoning for moving the fleet, and Pearl Harbor would put the ships at risk.
Another piece of evidence that supports the Pearl Harbor conspiracy theory was a slight military intelligence confusion known as the Winds Code. The Winds Code was a message that was supposed to be sent through Japanese radio stations saying, "East wind rain for the United States, west wind clear for Britain, and north wind cloudy for the Soviet Union." These codes would be sent if Japan were to attack the respective nations. All these signs make it hard to believe Pearl Harbor occurred totally by chance without advanced knowledge by American officials.
President Roosevelt was both the administrator and orchestrator of one of the greatest but least known conspiracies in all of history.
While it's too late to recover the lives lost as a result of FDR's cruel will, it isn't too late to justify their deaths and rewrite history.
Pearl Harbor was perhaps the greatest tragedy in all American history, not only for the lives that were lost that day in the attack, but the millions more who died as a result after our great nation was dragged into World War II.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.